Hi, this is Amanda Lee with the Divorcing with Dignity Summit from lovemetamorphosis.com. And I'm so excited for our speaker today because this one hits really close to home. Her name is Kimmoly Rice-Ogletree, and she is a highly respected change agent in her community and around the world. She is a published author, an international speaker, and a certified life coach. As a Christian divorce coach, Kimmoly has an enormous level of compassion for women of faith. She knows the struggle of being a Christian woman with a desire to please God, yet facing the negative stigma that comes with the issue of divorce in the Christian community. She understands that women need a safe place to fall where they will not be judged or condemned. Her desire is to change the stigma associated with divorce in the Christian community, and she wants to assist women in balancing the roller coaster of emotions, bringing clarity and focus to their next step, encouraging them through the process while keeping their character and self-esteem intact. She resides in Honolulu, Hawaii, and is the mother of two wonderful sons. Hi, Kimmoly.
Hi.
So excited to have you. This one really does hit home for me because I am a Christian myself and have navigated divorce in the church and know how hard it is. So thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Awesome. So my first question for you is, how did you get into this work in the first place?
Wow. So as a Christian divorce coach, as a Christian period, I've been a Christian for over 20 some years. And I've also experienced 3 failed marriages. So, I feel like God is calling me to take all that I've learned collectively through that and to help women to navigate that process successfully, because I realize, what a challenge it is being in the Christian community and trying to still maintain your faith and your trust and belief in God, and then all the people around you from, your Christian community that are seeing you walk this walk. So I just have a desire to help women to navigate through that process, since I've done it several times, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I joke like that's what makes us experts, right? And
Exactly.
It is so amazing that God takes our mess and uses it as our message.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's awesome. And there's no, I think, better way to help someone than to have empathy,
right?
And to have walked through it yourself. So that's amazing. So I'm sure it's a reward to those who work with you to have that connection. Okay, so my next question is, how do you think divorce is different for Christians? Because, divorce is hard on everybody, but I have a sense that it's especially hard as a Christian for multiple reasons. What's your take on that?
I think it's especially hard, and it just adds a whole nother dynamic to the situation, an already difficult situation, as you mentioned. But you're trying to, like I said before, maintain your faith. You're in the church, and 9 times out of 10, both parties attend the same church. Mm-hmm. So, people find it very difficult to support a couple in that aspect. They don't know what to say. They really don't know what to do. There isn't really a lot offered in the church to support women or men going through divorce. You have maybe some couples counseling that you may go to, which is awkward in itself, because you're meeting with pastors or church leadership. And it's very difficult because, for one, you don't really want to sit in front of your pastors and tear your spouse apart.
Right.
Who wants to do that? You want both parties, I think, have a desire to leave the other one's integrity intact through that process. But, you also have a singles ministry and you have a marriage ministry. Mm. But a lot of churches do not have something to support the in-between. And what woman wants to, after divorce, go to the singles ministry?
No, not me.
You just really don't want to do that. A lot of the singles don't even want to go to the singles ministry.
Yeah, totally.
It's just very difficult, to walk through that whole process, to show up week after week in church. Normally what happens is one of the one party leaves the church, or if they both, I've seen a lot of cases where they both decide to stay, and it's just really difficult. To try to walk that out. So I think, that whole dynamic of being in church, being a Christian, and being in that community, to an already daunting process of divorce.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, a big difference for Christians is an immense more sense of guilt, because not only are we dealing with the feelings of failure, that most people feel with divorce, we have this sense of guilt that we are doing something extremely wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's exactly how it's portrayed in the Christian community. It's interesting. I posted a video on my Facebook page the other day that I saw Bishop T.D. Jakes posted, actually, where he was talking about divorce, and he was talking about how he was so hardcore when he was counseling Christian couples, around the subject of divorce. And he used to always stick to, the two biblical reasons, which were adultery. Mm-hmm. And then if there was one unbeliever in the relationship and they chose to walk away from the relationship, then, you let them go. But he said he had to take another look at it, his stance on that, because he realized that he was sending some people back into abusive relationships, domestic violence situations. And he said, to tell the truth about it, murder, like people were, so he said he had to take another look at that. And I just so commend him as a pastor of a mega church, for taking that stand to be able to pull back and say, wait a minute, let me take another look at this, because people can, be really quick to throw the word in your face. And, people love to say, well, God hates divorce.
Yeah.
I, as a Christian woman, don't think, that he, as my heavenly Father, would want me to go home and be beat to a pulp or killed, any more than my natural father would want that for me. So you can't be so quick to judge. And as Christians, sometimes we do that very well.
Yeah, totally. I love that. I had goosebumps as you were talking about that, because I can picture myself sitting in my pastor's office, who was doing the best job that he could. And he literally said, like, you have no biblical grounds here. And right. I was in a marriage with an alcoholic who had a lot of severe anger problems. And it was definitely emotionally and a little bit of physical abuse, and I just sat there looking at him, and I just said, at the end of the day, you get to go home to your wife and your life, and I have to go home to mine.
Exactly.
And I ended up calling him at one point when I had to pick him up at like 3 a.m. because he had overdosed, and take him to the hospital. And I was just looking at him like, this is, there's no way that God is saying, oh, well, you got to stay, Amanda, and I literally stayed until I stayed for so long, because I was waiting for that Lazarus moment, where I wanted God to raise my marriage from the dead. And people were asking me, like, Amanda, like, it was killing me physically. My health was declining. And I stayed so long because I was so afraid to do the wrong thing. I was afraid of God. I was afraid of people. And also, but I waited until I had that peace from God, that peace that passes understanding, where he said, go, and I had that clarity from him. So why don't you address that a little bit about, the fear of God, and that whole piece, because there's a sense that, like, you just have like that fear that you're going to lose his love or disappoint him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing. None of us want to disappoint God. We all, as Christians, we have, our love relationship with God, and we want to please him. We want to do what's right, but as you said, there comes a point when, you do get that sense of peace about walking away. And so, I would take my personal relationship with God over any advice, that another Christian was given to me, because I have that personal relationship with him. And so, we can't get so caught up in what other people say, because as you said, they're not living your life. They're not going home to the situation that you're going home to. So it's easy to sit, in a counseling room and, be counseled by church leadership or pastors or something like that. And they're telling you, oh no, I personally was told, if you walk away from your marriage, there's going to be like this hefty price to pay. And, I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do with that? Or then there's that other thing about people not knowing what to say, and then I can remember having a conversation with someone in church leadership. And I was like, because I was always told, well, if you need anything, just let me know. If you ever want to talk, just let me know. And so, I called in that favor one time, and I can just remember sitting there, spilling my heart out, sharing my story and the pain that was involved and what was going on in my home. And then at the end of that conversation, just having her look at me and say, I'll pray for you. I was like, that's it?
Yeah.
That's all you've got?
Yeah.
So I just believe you have to, have that personal one-on-one relationship with God. And most of all, know when you're hearing his voice, not so much based on what you want to do, but if you prayed and God's giving you that peace and you know that you've done everything that you can do to try to salvage that relationship and try to keep that covenant intact, if God gives you the peace to leave and essentially in some cases save your life,
yes,
then you just have to go with that and not be caught up on, the judgment of other people in the Christian community. And I wholeheartedly believe that.
Yeah, I mean, I had a situation where I had someone write me a letter basically saying I needed to repent and, that I was going to hell and all this stuff from
if
my
you
divorce.
would just pray more.
Yeah, exactly. And,
I've oiled the house down in holy oil.
Seriously.
It's like, it's not that we're not praying enough or we just need to pray more or you just need to read your word. It's like, come on.
Yeah, I feel you there. I totally feel it. And the truth is like, I really did pray a lot. I mean, at one point I remember almost being angry with God because I looked at my prayer journal and I had begged him so much and I had all these promises from scripture and everything. And I'm like, oh, God's totally going to heal this, but he didn't. And this is the point I think that we're getting to here is that God is not black and white. Everything is not like, this is right, this is wrong. These are the rules all the time. Here's the boundaries and sorry, you're stuck. Like, we have a God of compassion who, I was thinking about like the story of Jonah the other day, and Jonah was frustrated because God wasn't just smiting that city and taking it out. And he realized, it says in there, he realized basically that God was a God of compassion and loving kindness and long suffering. And just, he doesn't do things just like, well, I'm going to do it this way every time. That's not the way he works. And so I think, understanding that he's not so black and white. But let's talk a little bit about that feeling of disappointment in God, because that's there. And your faith, I know for me through my divorces, your faith is just sometimes hanging by a thread because it does not make sense based on what you think should be. So why don't you address that a little bit?
You're right. And you're right. It's that feeling that it does not make sense. I can remember days, sitting in my car, crying out to God, like sitting in the garage, like, I've asked you to help me with my marriage, and you said you would protect me and, just crying, like you said, just really mad, like, God, why aren't you fixing this? But, it gets very frustrating and it really does, like you said, it really does test your faith. And, for me personally, I felt my internal joy slipping away, which was something that I had always been able to hold on to. And so when I felt that kind of leaving, I'm like, okay, God, I can't keep doing this. And I need for you to give me strength. And I need for you to help me through this situation, whatever that looks like. And I had to come to grips with the fact that maybe it wasn't supposed to be, maybe I'm trying so hard to help this person, but if they don't want my help, then where does that leave me? So my prayer life began to change from, oh God, please save my marriage. Oh God, please help me to know what to do in my marriage, to God, help me know what to do. Help me know how to walk through that season. And if I'm supposed to walk out of this, you need to show me how to do that because I don't know how to do that.
Right.
I don't know how to walk away from this and start all over again in my 40s. It's like, God, just show me what to do next. What step do I take next? So, the frustration was there in the beginning because, like you said, I was looking for God to help me to fix this. But then I had to come to that realization that, maybe my prayer had to be different. Maybe I was looking for him to solve something that wasn't meant to be solved,
Yeah.
you know? And so, you know, when I began to do that, he showed me exactly how to walk that process out, which is what I want to help other women with, because it was a process, you know, and I had to completely trust and believe that he was leading and guiding me through that process. And then I began to see him in it every step of the way.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think too, you know, I think the church is really good at the part of, you know, helping you try to save your marriage. And there's a lot of counseling. There's a lot of involvement. Everybody and their mother is involved. And then, you know, when you do decide that you're going to get a divorce, that help kind of disappears because they're
Like,
not
it's
quite
off.
Yeah, they don't know. They're like, well, I guess you're in the devil's world now, so we're out.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm not trying
Looking at them, you're like, why have you forsaken me?
yeah, I'm not trying to say every church is like this, because there are some churches out there who I think are doing the best they can and really try to surround people with that love of God in that time. But what I do think is missing there is, you know, there's a lot of people who they do like, you know, this biblical part, the scriptural part, but they're not getting to the root of like why you're continuing to make these mistakes or have these marriages fail.
Exactly. Right. And I don't think, you know, I know for me, I kept saying, I don't think anyone is holding my husband accountable. And that was huge for me. And I saw, one of the things I saw a lot or see a lot in churches is, you may have people, oh gosh, let's go down this rabbit hole. You have people in ministry that are serving, you know, and it's almost like they might not want to rock that boat because you lose your church security or you lose your church musician. And, you know, I don't think they want to sit people down until they get it right. But I think there needs to be a whole different level of accountability concerning the things that lead to divorce, if that makes sense. I think it's just very hard for them to hold people accountable and, you know, and sit them down and say, okay, you know, you're at home abusing your wife, so you cannot be in the pulpit doing praise and worship. That's out of alignment.
Right.
But a lot of times, you know, that those things aren't addressed. So, you know, I'm not sure if that directly answers your question, but that's what came to mind for me.
Yeah, I think also talking about like the root issues of why, like for instance, in my life, I realized that even though I love God and I want to have a good marriage and I prayed really hard, some of my foundational wiring for why I was attracted to the type of people I was attracted to had to do with deeper rooted stuff that wasn't just going to be fixed through a Bible verse. And I'm not saying God can't heal and fix, but God healed me by showing me the root cause of and gave me tools to heal those things. So it's like, it's not just a magic, like pray this verse and do this and you're good to go.
Exactly. Yeah, you do. You have to work that stuff out. And I know I went through that whole process, you know, of laying it all on the altar. You know, God, I have to give it to you. And, you know, after my second failed marriage, I went through a lot of that and really having to repent because I was really, really bound. Really bound after the second one. And I really did have to work that thing out and heal from that. And it was a process. And so I understand what you mean about, you know, having to deal with the deep-seated issues. And in this last marriage, that's what came up, you know, that's why we were not being able to get to the root of the problem, because there were issues that were deep-seated that weren't being dealt with. And it just negated everything else. It's like we can't even talk about healing our marriage if we can't talk about healing what happened to you as a child, or going for those things that are really impacting our marriage that have nothing to do with me. You know, so a lot of times that comes up and it's like, you can't fix what you won't acknowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a big issue. So it's like, if we can't even be real enough to address the real issue, it's really hard trying to fix your marriage if you can't fix the underlying issues. You know, so you can go to marriage counseling, you can do all of that. But if you only have one partner that's struggling and fighting for it, it's not going to work.
Yeah, that was the case in my second marriage as well. Because I had been married before and I had already started to do some of this work, I was aware like, oh, that's mine. You can see it because you're
Exactly.
like, oh, you're saying the exact same thing about me that my first husband said about me. So this is me.
Yes.
Well, it was his first marriage and his first real, like I would say, serious relationship. And so there was no accountability or recognition of his stuff. It was so easy to just look at me and say, well, this is your second time screwing this up, so this must be you.
Yeah.
And you're right. It takes both partners, and he wasn't willing to go there with me and do that work. And I almost moved beyond him in my ability to see my own stuff and want to address it. And it just was impossible because I couldn't take 100% responsibility for that. And that's painful. It's painful.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah. And so I feel you on that one. Okay. So my next question is, how do you specifically help Christians go through this divorce process? What is kind of your process of that?
Mm-hmm. So there are the 3 stages. You're trying to figure out whether you can really do this. Are you really going to walk away? So I help people in that realm. Like I always tell people, I will never ever advocate for divorce. I do, in the covenant of marriage, and I will never advocate for divorce, but I will advocate for, a woman's happiness, wholeness, for her to be free of things that keep her bound. And if you can accomplish that within the marriage, by fixing things, so let's talk about how you can accomplish that, but then there's that part of, I've decided that I need to walk away, so offering that safe place to fall, helping them through that whole process. Okay, what do you need to do? What do you need to do to prepare yourself for this? What do you need to prepare yourself for, that negative stigma that's associated with it? What do you need to prepare yourself for, based on the community around you? But then what do you need to prepare for going into an attorney's office and not falling apart, falling flat on your face, or, wasting thousands of dollars because you're trying to tell them, every single thing that happened and why it's not your fault, because they don't really care. They're for the legal aspect of it. So, helping a woman walk through that process of what it looks like and what to do to prepare for that situation, helping them to get clear about what's going on, because it's really hard sometimes to separate the emotions from the facts, when you're going through that process. And then if it's somebody that's coming out of the divorce process, then that's the whole piece where we're working on figuring out who you are now and where you go from here, reclaiming your identity, sort of taking your life back and how to move forward without bitterness and anger and resentment, because those things will only keep you bound, as I found out myself. So just helping them to, reclaim their identity and move forward from that point, and then go on and do, what God is calling them to do next, because He loves us and He has a purpose for it all. It's like all things work together, even divorce.
Right. Yeah.
So it can all be put together for, the good, used for the good. And that's what I feel, it has done for me, and I'm sure for you as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that you said that you're not an advocate of divorce, because I think there's a misunderstanding there. Like, hey, I'm not like pro-divorce. I'm pro, safety. I'm pro healing. I'm pro support for those navigating divorce. Because if you're going through it, you're going through it. The decision's made, and now what? Now, who's gonna help you?
I'm not saying, girl, leave your husband.
Yeah.
I would never do that. But fortunately, we find ourselves in those situations sometimes, and it's very helpful to have someone that can support you through that situation, because I just felt like, who can I talk to? Who can I turn to? Where is that safe place, that judgment-free safe place for me to, for me to fall and then be lifted back up again?
I love that. I love that you're standing in the gap for women navigating that, especially Christians. I think it's so needed, so important. I would have loved for you to be around when I was going through mine.
I would say that to me too.
Yeah. Why don't you tell our listeners today what the free gift you have is for them, which is very generous?
Okay, so my free gift to you guys is a clarity call. It's usually valued at $125. You'll see it on my website at www.christiandivorcecoach.com. And if you just sign up for the 45-minute consult, you'll get the clarity call for free. You know, you can just put it in the comments that you qualify for that free clarity call, and we'll make that happen. So
awesome.
Excited about that. Yeah.
That's so great of you. Thank you for doing that. And there's going to be a link to that below this video. Kimmoly, thank you so much for your time. I just love talking about this with you because there's not a lot of Christians that I can talk about this with very candidly. And it's refreshing because, you know, it's not a stigma, like you say, that is stamped on your forehead for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
There's life after divorce, and there's hope and healing, and God still loves us.
Yes, he does. That is the most important part to know, because some people really feel like, you know, what good am I now?
Oh, yeah.
He still loves you. He still has a purpose and a plan for your life. If you'll just, you know, listen to him and let him guide you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I will be in touch with you soon. And thank you for your time.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.